Hi, my name is Steve Snap, and thank you for joining me for this episode of Salesforce for Building Materials, where we'll talk about the specific problems that we were trying to solve by building a quoting solution inside of Salesforce. Before we get started, I want to mention that we have two links in the video description you should know about. I'll mention these again at the end of the video if you'd like to keep watching, but I wanted you to know that we've included a link to our pricing video where we share the pricing for Salesforce Construction, and we've also included a link to our guided free trial. The guided free trial will allow you to start using Salesforce Construction immediately in your business while providing a step-by-step learning path. One of the challenges within Salesforce for Building Materials that a lot of our other customers were running into is they have their CRM in one place, they have their quoting in another place, or quoting was sometimes even done in ERP. And so it's very difficult for them to really get a good understanding of what was happening within their quote and how to link that quote to the actual project. So what we did with Salesforce is that we took the quoting concept and we built it directly into our concept of a project. Now in other videos I go through in detail how we hang things off of a project. So in this example, I'm going to come from this quote screen here. I'm going to just click on the project just to give you a quick glimpse of that. So what you're seeing here is all the details associated with the project. Now in other videos, we go into detail about projects and project relationships. So I won't touch on that real heavily here, other than to say that there's these pieces of information that are associated with the project that we associate with the project, or that I like to say we hang off of the project. Things like project relationships, which I've already mentioned, orders, etc. In this video, I'm going to talk about quotes. So in this example, I want to go from this project here to this quote. And the idea here is that you might be managing multiple quotes across multiple recipients. So in the project relationships video, we might talk about, let's say, a general contractor or some subs. Or maybe you're quoting multiple general contractors. So what we were trying to do with quoting inside of Salesforce for Building Materials was to allow you to link that quote to that project, but also manage the details associated with those people that you send it to. Now I'm going to go through in a specific video how we deal with what we call quote contacts, but in this example I just want to give you an overview of what quoting is. So in this example I've got a quote that I'm showing on the screen. I've got it linked to the project like I showed a minute ago. Here are all the details associated with the quote header. You've got some description of the quote, you have a stage, you have an owner of the quote, etc. You've got some key quote dates here, you've got a quote amount. But below that, or in addition to that, you also have what we call the quote line items. Now I'm going to get to quote line items in just a second, but any other things related to the quote you would see under the related section. So if you have any follow-up activities or anything associated with that quote, you would see all of that information here. Under quote line items, we actually have the details associated with the quote. So this is an engine that we built specifically in Salesforce for building materials. And what it does is it allows you to actually create your quote. Now some of you might have an estimating department which calculates the actual labor or the amount of gross profit or whatever it is might be on the quote. That information can then be put into the quoting engine if that's the process that you follow. Now some people have their quoting done in ERP and then they copy those quotes over to Salesforce. Other people are moving in the direction of actually having their entire quote being done in Salesforce. So the beauty of that is you can build the quote in Salesforce and then push it other places, or you can have the quote built somewhere else and bring it into Salesforce. It doesn't really matter. What I wanted you to know is that when you look at this quote, you have the details associated with the quote. And so you've got, and I won't go through all of this in a lot of detail now, but you have the ability to have obviously a quantity, a part number. These part numbers are tied to a price list, which I'll show you now. So all of your part numbers, whether it's labor or parts, product, whatever, will all be available in your parts list built into Salesforce. So these parts are all specific parts or prices that are built into those products. And so obviously you have a SKU, a dollar amount, etc. All of that, as I said, is built into the part or the product. So the quote, as I was showing you a moment ago, is linked to those particular quotes, or those prices. And you can see that it pulls the product description over from that. It pulls the price. Allows us to mark up or discount or other things that we might want to do. And we've also built some other things that allow you to subhead this or subtotal it or whatever. So you've got a lot of flexibility in terms of how you can work with the quote. You can also reorder these rows. You can move things up. You can create subsections, etc. And again, we'll have another video where we go into much more detail of how you build a quote. My goal here was to simply emphasize that the problem we were trying to solve was, how do I actually have embedded quoting inside of my project, inside of Salesforce for Building Materials, and how do I manage that? And finally, I'll touch on this, like I said, in a more detailed video, but we also enable you to manage multiple contacts associated with this quote. So a big problem we have found, you might have 4 or 5 general contractors that you are providing quotes to. In this example, you might have provided version 1 of the quote, and then you might have gotten some additional details, maybe the drawings were changed or whatever. And so we wanted to give you the ability to not only manage versions of the quote, but also who you had sent that quote to. So quote contacts is what enables you to take one quote, one bill of materials for lack of a better word, and then be able to distribute it to multiple contacts. Now, a neat thing that we've built into this is you might have a basic quote with basic line items or basic bill of materials, but you might want to send slightly different pricing out. So you might have distributors that you want to send one price to, you might have general contractors that you want to send a price to, you might have certain contractors that you have very strong relationships with that you want to, for lack of a better word, give them an advantage. You might have a new contractor that might represent a little more risk for you. Whatever the incentives are, you've got the ability to not only manage one set of line items that you distribute to multiple people, but you can also dynamically modify pricing. Maybe I reduce this by 5%, maybe I increase that by 2%, etc. So again, I have a deeper video where we go through that. But again, the big idea was the quote concept inside of Salesforce Building Materials is designed to give you the ability to link that to a project and then distribute it very easily to multiple contacts. And then finally, you obviously have the ability to have multiple quotes. So you might have different versions of that quote, etc. And all of those things, again, get rolled up into that project. And that enables you to manage all of that kind of at that holistic project level. Thank you for spending a few minutes with me. I know your time is very limited. I've included 2 possible next steps in the video description. These include a link to our pricing video where we share the pricing for Salesforce Construction, and I've also included a link to our guided free trial. The guided free trial will allow you to start using Salesforce Construction immediately in your business while providing a step-by-step learning path. The guided free trial also introduces what we call the Guaranteed Quick Start, which is several pre-scheduled calls with our team to help make any light configuration changes like pick lists or reports, and also help you migrate any data that you want in your free trial. If you're not ready for those 2 choices, please spend some time here on our YouTube channel learning more about the specific problems we've solved for Salesforce Construction. Thank you again for some of your time, and we'll see you soon.